The air was thick with anticipation, heavy with the scent of sweat and the metallic taste of fear. The massive arena was silent, save for the clanking of armored feet as the alien predators moved restlessly. These were the galaxy's fiercest warriors, creatures bred for war, each one stronger and more terrifying than the last. Their reptilian eyes glowed in the dim light, their sharp claws scraping against the stone floor as they waited, eager for the next fight. And the next fight was about to begin. The large gates at the far end of the arena groaned as they slowly began to open, releasing a soft, eerie hiss. From behind the doors, a lone figure stepped forward. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, her body covered in the standard gray jumpsuit that all prisoners wore. She had no armor, no weapons, nothing but her bare hands. A human. Her name was Lena, and she was about to face the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy. As the doors opened wide, revealing the crowd of predators, Lena stepped into the arena. She didn't hesitate, didn't falter. Her eyes were calm, her movements deliberate, each step measured as she walked out onto the cold stone floor. It was a stark contrast to the thrumming energy in the room, the excitement building in the predators' chests as they waited for the inevitable. Another weak human, another easy victory. But Lena wasn't afraid. She stood in the center of the arena, her head held high, her posture straight and unyielding. The predators around her paused, their movements slowing, eyes narrowing as they sized her up. She was different. There was something in her that made them pause, something that sent a ripple of unease through the room. Lena didn't move a muscle. She simply stood there, facing the crowd of deadly creatures and let the silence stretch between them. She didn't have to prove anything. The power wasn't in her size, her strength, or her weapons. It was in her mind, in her heart. The predators could feel it. The leader of the pack, a towering creature with reptilian scales and glowing yellow eyes, stepped forward. It had seen countless humans come and go in this arena, all of them trembling in fear, all of them begging for mercy before the battle even began. But Lena was different. She stood like a mountain, unshaken, unbroken. The leader's voice was low, filled with mocking laughter as it spoke. "Another human. What do you think you're doing here? You're nothing but prey, a plaything for our amusement." The other predators chuckled, their voices deep and rumbling like thunder. They were used to seeing humans like this, small, weak, trembling in fear. They expected her to beg, to fall to her knees in terror. It was how things always went. But Lena didn't bow, didn't show any sign of fear. She just stood there. The leader continued, "Do you think you can survive? Do you think you're strong enough to face us?" Still, Lena didn't flinch. Her eyes met the leader, steady and unbroken. And for a moment, the leader felt something it hadn't felt in a long time, a flicker of doubt. It wasn't fear, not exactly, but there was something about this human that made its scales prickle, something that felt off. "Your kind is weak," the leader spat, stepping closer to Lena. "We've hunted entire species, and you're nothing. We will break you just like the others." Lena didn't respond. She didn't need to. She had no time for their words. The time for talking was over. The fight had already begun. And so it did. Without warning, the leader lunged. Its claws slashed through the air, cutting toward Lena with terrifying speed. The crowd roared with excitement. This was what they had come for, the blood, the violence, the thrill of the kill. They wanted to see the human crushed under the weight of the predator's power. But Lena was ready. With a speed that seemed impossible for someone of her size, she ducked beneath the leader's massive claws, rolling to the side just as the creature's tail swept through the air. The predator missed, its claws striking the stone floor with a deafening crack. The predators in the stands were silent now, their excitement fading into confusion. This wasn't what they expected. The human didn't collapse in fear. She didn't scream for mercy. Instead, she moved like she had done this before, like she knew exactly what she was doing. The leader roared in frustration, spinning around to face Lena. Its sharp teeth gleamed in the dim light as it charged again, faster this time, its claws swiping through the air like a blur. The crowd watched, mesmerized, as Lena dodged again, slipping past the creature's attacks with an almost graceful fluidity. Lena didn't strike back. She didn't need to. She was too quick, too smart. She was learning from every move the leader made, understanding its patterns, its weaknesses. She was playing the long game. For a moment, the leader hesitated, something unfamiliar creeping into its mind. The human was not like the others. It was as if she were dancing with death, not fighting to survive, but understanding her enemy. And that was when the predator made its fatal mistake. In a split second of hesitation, Lena saw her opening. As the leader's claws swung wide, she ducked, grabbing a jagged piece of stone from the ground. With all the strength she could muster, she lunged forward, driving the sharp edge of the stone into the predator's exposed side. The leader howled in pain, stumbling back. Blood oozed from the wound, staining the stone floor beneath it. The predator's eyes widened in shock. This human had done what no one expected. She had struck back, and she had hurt it. The crowd was stunned into silence. The leader, once so confident in its victory, was now stumbling. The predators in the stands could feel it too, a shift in the air, a sense that the impossible was happening. This human was not just surviving, she was fighting back. The leader let out a deep, guttural growl, more in anger than pain. It lashed out, desperate to finish what it had started. But Lena was already moving, her body reacting faster than thought. She had the leader on the defensive now, its attacks growing wilder, more frantic as it struggled to regain control of the fight. And all the while, Lena remained calm. She was not fighting with brute force. She was fighting with her mind, with every ounce of her being focused on one goal: survival. The arena was silent. The predators, the audience, the leader, they were all waiting to see what would happen next. Lena wasn't just a human, she was more. And in that moment, the predators understood something they had never known before. Humans were not weak, they were not prey. They were survivors. Lena stood still, her breath steady but shallow, her body exhausted from the fight. She had just driven a sharp stone into the leader's side, and the massive predator had stumbled back, howling in pain. Blood dripped from its wound, staining the cold stone floor of the arena. The room was silent now, silent in awe, silent in disbelief. The predators in the stands watched in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Lena, this human, had hurt their leader. They had seen many humans come and go in the arena, all of them terrified, trembling before the monstrous creatures that were bred for war. But this woman was different. She wasn't scared. She wasn't weak. She was fighting back. The leader, its yellow eyes burning with fury, let out a low growl. It had never been challenged like this before. It was accustomed to victory, to crushing its opponents with ease. But Lena, she had done something that no other human had ever done. She had wounded it. She had fought back. It staggered to its feet, clearly enraged but struggling to maintain its composure. For a moment it seemed unsure, hesitant. Lena didn't move, didn't flinch. She stood there waiting for the predator's next move. She wasn't finished yet. She knew she couldn't let up. The fight was far from over. "Is this the best you've got?" Lena asked, her voice calm despite the adrenaline pumping through her veins. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't panicking. She was simply stating the truth. She had faced worse than this. She had faced challenges far greater than any of these creatures could imagine, and she had survived. The leader's eyes narrowed as it bared its teeth in a snarl. "You are a fool, human," it growled, its voice deep and menacing. "You are nothing. You will fall like all the others." The crowd of predators shifted restlessly in their seats. They had expected the human to beg, to run, to collapse in fear. But Lena wasn't like the others. She wasn't afraid of them, and that was what terrified them the most. Without another word, the leader lunged again, its massive claws aimed directly at Lena's chest. But this time, she was ready. She sidestepped with a fluid grace, avoiding the strike by mere inches. Her heart raced as she moved, her muscles screaming from the exertion, but her focus never wavered. She knew this creature, like all the others, relied on brute force, speed, and overwhelming power. But Lena had something more, something they couldn't see, something that gave her an edge. She had her mind. She had her instinct. And that was something the predators didn't understand. As the leader tried to recover, Lena seized the opportunity. She darted forward, moving with speed and precision, faster than any of them expected. The leader, still recovering from its failed strike, wasn't ready for the human to be on top of it in an instant. Lena grabbed a shard of metal from the arena floor, using it as a weapon, and she thrust it into the soft underbelly of the leader's massive frame. The predator screeched in pain, stumbling backward. It was no longer the confident, powerful creature it had been at the start. It was injured. It was weakened. And Lena could feel it. She could feel that moment of doubt creeping into the air, the shift in the predator's stance, the uncertainty in its movements. For the first time, the leader was no longer the predator. It was the prey. The predator's eyes flashed with anger and desperation. "You are stronger than I thought," it growled, its voice thick with rage. "But it won't be enough. You will die, human, all of you die." Lena's jaw tightened, her grip firm on the weapon in her hand. She had heard this before, this same taunt, this same promise of death. She had faced it over and over in her life, and she had always come out the other side. You're wrong, Lena said quietly, her eyes never leaving the leader's. I'm not going to die today. The leader lunged again, its claws reaching out for her, but Lena was already moving. She ducked, rolling to the side, using the predator's momentum against it. She didn't waste time. She was quick. Every move was calculated, every step deliberate. She had trained for this. She had fought for her life every day. She wasn't going to let it end here. The leader tried to swipe again, but this time Lena grabbed its arm, twisting it with all her strength. The predator howled in pain as Lena wrenched its arm behind its back, pushing it to the ground with a force that surprised even her. The crowd gasped. The predators could hardly believe their eyes. Lena had thrown the leader to the ground. She had taken control of the fight, and now the creature that had once seemed unstoppable was vulnerable. Lena knelt beside the leader, her breath ragged, her body aching from the constant struggle, but her eyes were clear and focused. She had no intention of stopping until the fight was won. This wasn't just about survival. This was about proving to herself and to the entire galaxy that humans were not weak. You were wrong, Lena whispered, her voice steady and full of conviction. I'm not here to die, I'm here to win. With one final, decisive move, she forced the predator's head to the ground, securing it beneath her. The leader tried to fight back, but it was too late. Lena's hand, steady and unyielding, held the creature in place. For the first time in the arena, the leader's eyes flickered with fear. It could feel it now, the human had won. It was not going to get up, it was not going to escape. Lena stood up slowly, her heart pounding but her body no longer shaking. She had done it. She had won. The room was deathly quiet. No cheers, no roars of triumph, only silence as every predator in the arena realized the truth. Lena, a human, an underdog, a mere mortal in their eyes, had defeated the leader. The leader, defeated and humiliated, lay still on the floor. Its chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, but it was no longer a threat. The fight was over, and Lena had won. The predators, once so sure of their superiority, now stood in stunned silence. They had witnessed something they had never expected. A human, fragile, weak, and small, had proven them wrong. Lena looked around the arena, her heart still racing, but she didn't feel fear anymore. She felt something else, pride. She had faced the impossible, and she had come out on top. And as she stood in the center of the arena, bloodied but unbroken, she realized one thing: this was only the beginning. The room was silent, a heavy, oppressive silence that weighed down on every predator in the arena. Lena stood in the center, her chest rising and falling with deep, steady breaths. Her arms were covered in bruises, her face bloodied, but her eyes were clear, focused, and above all, unbroken. She had done it. She had taken down their leader, the one they all feared, the one who had been undefeated for centuries. And now, the predators in the stands who had once laughed at her, who had underestimated her, were seeing the truth. This human, this small, fragile being, was not only a survivor, she was a fighter. The leader of the predators lay on the ground, motionless. Its massive, scaly form had crumpled in defeat after Lena's decisive move. The fight was over, and yet the tension in the air hadn't lifted. It was as if the entire arena was holding its breath, waiting for something else to happen. Lena didn't move, her eyes scanning the room, watching every predator in the stands carefully. The others, the ones who had watched with amusement as humans were thrown into the arena for sport, were now shifting uneasily in their seats. They were all beginning to realize what they had witnessed. A human with no special powers, no advanced technology, had just defeated the greatest predator they had known. The silence stretched on. For what felt like an eternity, there was no sound except the distant, rhythmic beating of Lena's heart. She felt the weight of the moment. Everything she had fought for, everything she had survived was leading to this. She wasn't just proving something to the predators. She was proving it to herself. The loud hiss of the arena doors opening cut through the silence, and the predator leader's voice echoed through the space. "You have won, human," it growled, its voice rough and strained. It was barely audible, but there was a sense of finality to its words. "You have defeated me, but there is something you need to understand." Lena's heart skipped a beat. The leader's words hung in the air, but there was something else in its tone, something she couldn't quite place. As the leader's massive form slowly stirred, it continued. "You may have beaten me, but you will never be free." The words sent a chill through Lena. She didn't flinch, didn't step back. Instead, she met the leader's gaze, unwavering. "I don't need to be free," she replied, her voice quiet but full of strength. "I need to show you that humans aren't weak, we don't break, and we never stop fighting." For a long moment there was no response. The leader stared at her with wide eyes, perhaps for the first time truly seeing the human standing before it, not as prey, not as an easy victory, but as a force to be reckoned with. The leader grunted, pushing itself to its feet with great effort. You think you've won? This arena. This world is not one of mercy. There is no escape. You may have bested me, but others will come. They will tear you apart. Lena's eyes narrowed, her body tensing as the leader's words hung in the air. It was trying to intimidate her, trying to make her feel like this battle was just a small part of something far worse. She didn't let it get to her. We'll see, Lena said simply, stepping back and letting the leader stand. She had proven her point. She had shown them that a human could stand toe-to-toe with the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, and against all odds, she had won. The predator let out a low growl, but it didn't make another move toward her. It simply stood there, defeated. There was no more arrogance in its eyes, no more hatred, only something Lena hadn't seen before, respect. Part 4, the ultimate test. The room was still in shock. The predators who had once laughed at her, who had expected nothing more than to see her die in the arena, were now quiet. Their eyes were fixed on her, not with mockery, but with something entirely different, fear. Lena's heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to let it show. She had to keep her composure, to keep her mind sharp. The battle was over, but this arena, this place, wasn't done with her. She knew it. There was still more to come. The sound of more footsteps echoed through the arena, heavy and deliberate. Another challenge, another predator. But this time, it wasn't just one. From the shadows at the edge of the arena, a group of 4 creatures emerged, each one larger, more menacing than the last. These were the elite of the arena, the top warriors, the ones that no human had ever survived. Lena's muscles tensed, but her eyes remained calm. She had already faced the impossible. She could do it again. The crowd in the stands began to murmur, their whispers growing louder. They had seen the strength of this human, but they didn't know if it was enough to face the ultimate challenge. The leader of the new group stepped forward. This creature was different from the rest. Its body was sleek, armored, and deadly. Its eyes were cold, calculating. It spoke, its voice booming through the arena. Human, it said, you have shown yourself to be a worthy opponent, but your fight is far from over. We are the final test. The words struck like a thunderclap. This was it, the moment Lena had been dreading but knew would come. 4 predators, each one a warrior in their own right, were now her opponents. She could feel the weight of it all, the pressure of their eyes, the weight of their deadly intent. But she had been here before. She had fought harder battles, faced more terrifying odds, and every time she had come out on top. She wasn't afraid. The 4 predators circled her, their eyes trained on her every move. Lena stood still, not moving a muscle. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing her sweat. She wasn't going to let them see her fear. They were stronger, faster, but they lacked one thing that Lena had in spades. They didn't have her heart. The first predator lunged at her, its claws outstretched. But Lena was ready. She dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack, and in the same fluid motion, she rolled to her feet, catching the predator's arm and using its own force to throw it to the ground. The crowd gasped. The other 3 predators immediately attacked, moving in perfect synchrony. But Lena was already one step ahead. She ducked and weaved, using every ounce of speed and skill she had gained from the countless battles before. She wasn't just dodging. She was thinking, anticipating their moves before they even made them. The fight was brutal, the predators relentless, but Lena fought with everything she had. Her body was bruised, her movements growing slower with each passing second, but she wasn't going to stop. Not now, not when she had come this far. The battle raged on, and Lena, the human, the underdog, was proving once again that no matter how strong the enemy, no matter how overwhelming the odds, she would never give up. The air in the arena was thick with tension. Lena stood in the center, her breath shallow but steady, her body covered in sweat and blood. The sound of the crowd had faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of her heart. She had just taken down the leader, the greatest predator she had faced so far, but now there was no time to rest. From the shadows, a new group of creatures emerged, each one larger, more dangerous than the last. They were the final challenge, the ultimate test, and Lena knew they weren't here to spare her. 4 predators, 4 deadly opponents. The odds were now stacked against her more than ever. But Lena wasn't backing down. She had fought her way through every obstacle, every trial, and she had earned her place here. She wasn't going to lose now. The creatures in front of her were the elite, warriors feared by all, bred for the sole purpose of being the deadliest hunters in the galaxy. Each of them stood taller than the last, their eyes glowing with a menacing light. Their muscles were rippling beneath thick armor, and their claws glinted in the dim light of the arena. The leader of the group stepped forward, its voice deep and menacing. "You've defeated our kind before, human," it said, its tone dripping with disdain. "But these are the strongest of us, and you will not survive." Lena didn't respond. She simply locked eyes with the leader, her face calm but determined. She had no intention of dying today, not after everything she had been through. Without another word, the predators charged. Lena didn't flinch. Her body was bruised and aching, her muscles begging for rest, but she moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for someone so exhausted. She ducked under the first strike, sidestepping the creature's massive claws with a speed that surprised even her. The predator roared in frustration as Lena darted out of reach, her mind working in overdrive. She didn't have the luxury of hesitation. Every moment was critical, one mistake and it could be her last. The second predator was quicker. It lunged at her with a shriek, its claws swiping across the air like a blur. Lena barely managed to dodge, but she was slower now, her body growing heavier with each movement. She didn't have time to think about it. She had to keep moving. The third predator joined in, forcing Lena to retreat back toward the center of the arena. She was surrounded now, the predators closing in on all sides. Their attacks were relentless, each one coming faster than the last. Lena knew she couldn't keep this up forever. She had to act. With a swift move, Lena dove to the ground, narrowly avoiding a strike from the fourth predator. She could hear its claws scrape against the stone, just inches from her face. But she didn't stop. She rolled to her feet, using the predator's momentum to push it off balance. Lena's heart raced as she glanced around. The other three were regrouping, coming at her from different angles. She had no choice. She had to fight smarter, not harder. The first predator lunged again, but this time Lena anticipated its move. She sidestepped, grabbing a shard of broken stone from the floor and driving it into the creature's exposed side. The predator screeched in pain, stumbling backward, but it didn't fall. Lena didn't stop. She didn't wait for the creature to recover. She darted toward the second predator, grabbing its arm and twisting it with a force that sent the beast crashing to the ground. She didn't give it time to get back up. With one quick strike, she knocked the second predator unconscious. The crowd was silent. They had never seen anything like this before. A human, a frail, insignificant human, was standing her ground against the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. She wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back, taking them down one by one. But the fight was far from over. The third and fourth predators were still standing, and they were more determined than ever. They circled Lena, their eyes burning with fury. The third predator lunged first, its claws aimed directly at her chest. Lena ducked and spun, grabbing the creature's arm and using its own force against it. She twisted, sending it crashing to the ground. But it was still alive, still trying to fight. It was relentless. The fourth predator charged from behind, its massive tail swinging at Lena's head. She didn't see it coming in time. The tail struck her side with bone-crushing force, sending her crashing into the stone wall. Pain shot through her body, and for a moment the world went black. But Lena didn't stay down. She couldn't. She had been knocked down before, and she had always gotten back up. With a grunt, she pushed herself to her feet, her muscles screaming in protest. She couldn't feel her side. The pain was overwhelming, but she ignored it. She had no choice. The predators were closing in again, and she had to finish this. Lena's eyes narrowed as she faced the third predator. She was tired, her body shaking with exhaustion, but her resolve was unshakable. She couldn't let this creature win. She couldn't let them win. The third predator lunged again, its claws swiping for her throat. But this time, Lena was ready. She ducked and twisted, grabbing the predator's arm and slamming it into the ground with all her strength. The creature howled in pain, but Lena didn't stop. She pressed the attack, using every ounce of energy she had left to push the creature to the ground. The predator struggled, but it couldn't break free. Lena's hands were steady as she held it down, her body trembling with the effort. She had to end this now. With one final, powerful strike, Lena slammed the shard of stone into the creature's chest, piercing its heart. The predator let out a final, guttural scream before collapsing, its body going limp beneath her. The arena was still. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. Lena stood over the fallen predator, her chest heaving with exhaustion. Her body was covered in blood, her muscles aching, but she had done it. She had defeated the third predator. The fourth predator let out a low growl, its eyes narrowed in rage. But Lena wasn't finished yet. She was so close. She had fought through everything, through pain, through exhaustion, and now victory was within her grasp. With a final, triumphant roar, she turned to face the last predator, her eyes locked onto its, unshaken by the fear and doubt that had plagued her before. She was a human, and that made her powerful. She didn't need to be bigger or stronger. She just needed to survive. The crowd held its breath as Lena charged, not with fear, but with unrelenting determination. She would win. She would survive. The arena had fallen silent, the air thick with anticipation. The predators, once confident in their superiority, now watched in disbelief. Lena, battered and bruised, stood tall in the center of the arena, surrounded by the bodies of the defeated. The third predator lay motionless at her feet, its chest heaving in the final moments of life before it had fallen. She had done it. But there was one more. One more predator remained, the biggest, the deadliest. The fourth predator stood at the far side of the arena, its massive, muscled form ready for the kill. Its eyes glowed with a fierce, primal hunger. This was the one that had nearly crushed her with its tail, the one she had been waiting for. Lena's breath was shallow, every muscle in her body screaming with pain. She had been knocked down more times than she could count, and yet somehow she was still standing. She could feel the weight of the arena pressing down on her, the eyes of the entire galaxy watching her every move. But she wasn't going to stop, not now. The predator's claws clicked against the stone floor as it slowly moved toward her. Every step seemed to shake the ground beneath her feet. The predator's eyes locked onto hers, a cold, calculating look in them. "You think you can win?" it growled, its voice low and menacing. "You're already broken, you have nothing left." Lena didn't flinch. She had heard this before, countless times, from every enemy she had ever faced. But she wasn't like the others. She wasn't going to let this creature tear her apart. "I'm not broken," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Not yet." Her words hung in the air, defiant. Her eyes never left the predator. She could feel the weight of its gaze, the challenge in its every movement. It was faster, stronger. But Lena had something it didn't. Heart. The predator lunged, its claws swinging in a blur of deadly force. Lena barely had time to react. She ducked to the side, the claws scraping the air just above her head. She felt the wind from the predator's strike, but she didn't give in to the panic. She had faced worse. She had survived worse. Lena rolled to the ground, narrowly avoiding another swipe. Her heart raced, and her muscles burned with exhaustion, but she didn't stop. She wouldn't stop. The predator turned, its movements smooth and calculated as it came at her again. But Lena was ready. She had no more time for hesitation. She couldn't let the predator get the upper hand again. With all the strength she had left, she surged forward, grabbing a jagged piece of stone from the floor. The predator's massive arm came down, but this time Lena was faster. She sidestepped, driving the shard of stone into the soft underbelly of the creature's arm. The predator roared in pain, its eyes flashing with fury. It stumbled back, its claws leaving deep gouges in the stone floor. Lena didn't wait for it to recover. She attacked again, using her smaller size to her advantage, darting in and out with quick strikes, aiming for the weak spots in the predator's armor. It was all about precision now. Speed was no longer enough. She had to be smarter. The predator swung its claws wildly, desperate to land a hit. Lena ducked, narrowly missing one attack, but she couldn't keep this up forever. She was running out of strength, out of time. But the predator was growing more and more frustrated with every failed strike. It had never fought someone like Lena before. She could see it in its eyes now. The predator was starting to doubt. It wasn't used to this. It wasn't used to an opponent who could evade its blows, who could fight back, who didn't give up. Lena took another step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to finish this. She had to prove that she was more than just a human. She was a survivor. She was a fighter. The predator came at her again, its jaws snapping, its claws slashing through the air. Lena ducked under the attack, using her body to slide beneath the creature's reach. As she emerged behind it, she struck with all her might, driving the stone shard deep into the predator's exposed neck. The predator let out a final, deafening roar as the stone pierced its skin. It staggered backward, its claws scraping against the stone floor, trying to regain control. But it was too late. Lena twisted the shard, driving it deeper into the wound. The predator collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud, its massive body shaking for a moment before going still. Lena stood over it, her chest heaving, her body aching, but her mind clear. She had done it. She had defeated them all. The arena was dead silent. The predators in the stands couldn't believe what they had just seen. Lena, a human, fragile, small, and seemingly weak, had taken down 4 of their finest warriors. She had faced their strongest, their deadliest, and she had come out victorious. It wasn't just the physical victory that stunned them. It was the heart behind it. They had underestimated her, believing that strength alone was what determined who would win. But Lena had shown them something far more powerful than raw strength. She had shown them willpower. She had shown them the strength of the human spirit. The leader of the predators, still on the ground, stared at Lena with a mix of fear and admiration. For the first time, it understood the truth. Humans were not just prey. They were not weak. They were something more. You, the leader's voice was hoarse, its words thick with disbelief. You are more than we ever imagined. Lena didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her actions spoke for her. She had come here to survive. She had come here to prove that humans were not weak. And now she had done that. She had done more than survive. She had conquered. The arena erupted into applause, the sound filling the space like a tidal wave. But Lena didn't hear it. She didn't care. The fight was over. She had won. As the predators slowly began to rise from their seats, their eyes still filled with awe, Lena took one last look at the arena. She had faced the impossible and she had won. But in that moment, she knew that no victory would ever be as sweet as the one she had just earned. The arena was alive with the sound of roaring applause, but Lena barely heard it. The blood from her wounds had dried, and her body ached in ways she had never felt before. Her muscles burned, her head throbbed, but there was something else coursing through her veins now, a strength that came not from her body, but from deep within her soul. She had faced down the most terrifying creatures the galaxy had to offer and walked away victorious. But the battle wasn't over, not yet. The predators in the stands, who had once thought humans weak and easily defeated, now watched her with a new sense of awe. The leader of their kind, the one who had mocked Lena earlier, lay sprawled across the arena floor, defeated and humiliated. And yet there was one last challenge left, something that had always been part of the arena's twisted tradition. Lena had proven herself in battle, but the final test was still to come. The ground beneath her feet shook slightly as the arena doors opened once again, the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the silent space. Lena's heart skipped a beat as she turned to face the new arrival. Another predator? Another challenger. No, this was different. From the shadows, a towering figure emerged. It was taller than any of the other creatures, its body covered in thick metallic armor that shimmered in the dim light. Its face was hidden behind a mask, but the dark, menacing eyes that glowed from within the helmet were unmistakable. Lena's heart raced as she took a step back. This wasn't like the others. This was the final challenge, the one that no one had ever survived, the perfect warrior, the creature that even the other predators feared. The crowd grew silent. They knew what this was. This was the ultimate test. The figure stepped into the center of the arena, its movements slow, deliberate. Every step it took seemed to shake the ground beneath her feet. The power radiating from it was undeniable, even from a distance. Lena could feel the weight of its presence pressing down on her, filling the air with an eerie, suffocating tension. It wasn't just strong, it was built for this. Its every movement was calculated, precise. It was made to kill. Lena's fists clenched at her sides. She had faced monsters, she had faced giants. But this creature was something else entirely. It was designed to destroy. The crowd whispered among themselves, unsure of what would happen next. No one had ever seen a human stand up to the perfect warrior. No one had ever survived. The creature raised its arm, its metallic hand clanging against the stone floor. "You fought well, human," it said, its voice low, cold, and mechanical. "But you've reached the limit of your strength. This is where your journey ends." Lena didn't flinch, she didn't even blink. She was tired, she was in pain, but she wasn't going to give up. She had come this far, she had fought through every challenge, every obstacle, and now there was only one thing left to do: win. "I didn't come here to lose," Lena said, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion pulling at her. The creature tilted its head, studying her for a moment. "Then you will die trying." With that, it lunged. Lena's instincts kicked in immediately. The creature was faster than any of the others she had faced, its movements almost a blur. It was on her in a split second, its claws swiping through the air. She barely had time to react, but she dodged, rolling to the side just as its claws raked across the space where she had been standing. The predator turned, its speed never slowing. Lena had no time to waste. She had to think faster, move quicker, outsmart it. The creature struck again, this time with a wide swipe that could tear through stone. Lena dove forward, just barely avoiding the claws. She reached for a jagged piece of broken stone from the floor, using the small advantage of her size and speed to get close enough to strike. Her hand gripped the shard tightly as she swung it toward the creature's exposed side. But it was too quick. The warrior's arm shot out, knocking the stone from her hand with a force that sent it flying across the arena. The crowd gasped, the tension rising. It looked like Lena was struggling. No one had ever gotten this close to the perfect warrior, and now it seemed like this might be the end. But Lena wasn't done yet. The creature was strong, it was fast, but Lena had one thing it didn't. Heart. She could feel it, the power that came from deep inside her, from every fight, every challenge. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everyone who had ever been underestimated, who had ever been told they weren't strong enough. She was fighting for humanity. The creature lunged again, but this time Lena was ready. She sidestepped, using its own momentum to twist its arm behind its back. She wasn't just trying to survive anymore. She was fighting back. She wasn't going to let this creature take her down, not without a fight. With one swift motion, Lena grabbed a piece of metal from the floor, its edge sharp and jagged. She thrust it into the creature's side, pushing with all her strength. The warrior let out a sharp, mechanical scream as the metal pierced its armor. It staggered back, throwing Lena off balance, but she didn't stop. She got up and rushed at it again, this time slamming the metal shard into the back of its neck. The creature staggered, faltering. It tried to grab her, but its movements were slower now, its power weakening with every strike. Lena could feel it. It was tiring. It was weakening. She just had to hold on a little longer. She moved quickly, her breath coming in ragged gasps, but her resolve was unshakable. She knew what she had to do. With one final, powerful blow, Lena slammed the shard deep into the back of the creature's head. It let out one final, mechanical roar before collapsing to the floor, its body crumpling in defeat. The crowd was dead silent. For a moment it felt like the world had stopped. Lena stood there, her body shaking, her heart pounding in her chest. She had done it. She had defeated the perfect warrior. The arena was still, not a sound echoing in the space. The predators in the stands couldn't believe what they had just seen. A human, small, fragile, weak by their standards, had faced their strongest warrior and come out victorious. Lena stood over the fallen creature, breathing heavily, blood dripping from her wounds. Her heart raced in her chest, but there was no fear, only triumph. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about proving something to the universe, that no matter how big the enemy, no matter how impossible the odds, humanity would never back down. We would never be broken. The leader of the predators, its voice low and filled with awe, spoke again. "You are a force to be reckoned with, human." Lena didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her victory was already proof enough. The predators in the stands stood silent, watching her with a new understanding. Humans weren't weak. They were strong, and Lena had shown them that. Lena stood in the center of the arena, her body bruised, her breath ragged, but her heart strong. The perfect warrior, the final challenger, lay defeated at her feet. The metallic clang of the creature's body hitting the stone floor echoed throughout the arena, as if marking the end of a battle, not just between two fighters, but between two worlds. Lena had proven something, something the predators hadn't expected, something she hadn't even expected of herself. The crowd was silent. The predators in the stands, who had once thought humans to be nothing more than weak prey, now stared at her with a mix of awe and disbelief. She had faced the deadliest warriors they had ever known and walked away victorious. But there was no time for celebration. Lena's muscles screamed for rest, her mind was clouded with exhaustion, but she knew what would come next. The fight may have been won, but the war, at least in this arena, was far from over. Lena's body swayed slightly and her vision blurred. The pain was overwhelming. She had been through so much in this battle, but the adrenaline was starting to wear off. She felt like she was about to collapse, her knees weakening beneath her. Her body had been pushed to its limits, but she couldn't afford to give in now. The sound of footsteps pulled her from her thoughts. It was slow at first, measured. She turned her head and saw the leader of the Predators rising from its seat in the stands, its eyes narrowed and its posture stiff. The leader had watched every fight, had seen every victory, every defeat, and now it was coming down to one final judgment. "You've done what no human has ever done," the leader's voice echoed, deep and unyielding across the arena. "You've proven yourself worthy in ways I never imagined, but this isn't over. You will not be allowed to leave here unscathed. There are consequences for defying us." Lena's heart raced. The weight of its words sank in, but she wasn't going to show fear. She had survived the worst they had thrown at her. She wasn't about to break now. "What do you want from me?" Lena said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion. She forced herself to stand tall, meeting the leader's gaze. "I've already won. I've already defeated your strongest warriors. You wanted me to prove myself. I have, so why don't you let me go?" The leader's yellow eyes flickered with a mix of admiration and something darker. "You may have won, human, but your victory comes with a price. You are not meant to be here. You should have died. But now you've proven something no one else could. You've shown us the power of your kind, and that I can't allow." Lena clenched her fists, every muscle in her body tensing. She couldn't afford to back down. She couldn't afford to lose, not after everything she had been through. The leader stepped closer, its massive form looming over her. Lena stood her ground, refusing to show fear. She had earned this moment, and she wouldn't let anyone take it from her. "You don't understand," the leader growled. "You've made a mockery of this arena. You've shown us something we couldn't have imagined, and now I must decide if you're an ally or a threat." Lena's breath caught in her throat. She realized then, with a sharp pang of realization, that this wasn't just about survival anymore. It wasn't about fighting for her life. It was about something more, something the Predators had never considered. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were faced with the consequences of their own arrogance. "I'm neither your ally nor your enemy," Lena said, her voice filled with resolve. "I'm human, and I'm stronger than you think." The leader didn't say another word. Its eyes narrowed, and it raised a clawed hand, signaling to the other Predators in the stands. Lena's heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't flinch. She had fought the leader's warriors. She had defeated their greatest fighters, and now she was about to face the leader itself. The arena fell silent again, the air thick with tension. Lena felt it, something shifting in the atmosphere. A sense of finality, a feeling that whatever happened next, it would determine everything. And then it happened. The leader lunged, its claws flashing through the air, aiming directly for Lena. She barely had time to react. The leader's strength was unmatched, its speed breathtaking. Lena dodged to the side just as the leader's claws swiped past her. The air seemed to crackle with the power of the strike. She could feel the force of it, the wind from the blow whipping against her face. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. She darted in quicker than before, landing a punch to the leader's exposed side. The Predator staggered, its breath coming in deep, ragged gasps, but it didn't fall. It turned, swiping again with its claws, this time grazing Lena's arm. She hissed in pain, but her focus never wavered. She wasn't going to let this Predator defeat her. Not now. With a quick move, Lena ducked low, sweeping the leader's legs out from under it. The leader fell, its massive body crashing to the ground with a deafening thud. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, the leader let out a roar, fury lighting its eyes as it attempted to rise. Lena moved quickly, not giving the Predator a second to recover. She grabbed a jagged piece of stone from the arena floor and plunged it into the leader's chest with all the strength she had left. The leader screamed, its claws reaching for her, but it was too late. The Predator's body shuddered beneath her, and with one final roar, it fell still. The arena was completely silent. No one moved, no one spoke. Lena stood over the leader's lifeless body, breathing heavily, her heart pounding in her chest. The battle was over. She had done it. She had defeated the last of them. For a long moment, there was no sound except for the ragged breathing of the Predators in the stands. The crowd was frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had just witnessed something that no one had ever believed possible. A human defeating the perfect warrior, a human defeating the leader. The silence was broken only when the leader's voice, now soft and filled with a mix of respect and regret, echoed from the ground. "You have done what no one ever thought possible," it said. "You have proven that humans are not weak." Lena, standing tall and proud, didn't say a word. She had said everything she needed to with her actions.